Hello, I'm CEO of National AMBUCS, Jessica Wall, here to talk about some chapter secretary training. First of all, thank you for either having the interest or actually stepping into a leadership position with your chapter. I think the secretary is one of the most vital positions for chapter success because you are the steward of record keeping. Now, let's get into this. Sometimes there's some overlap between these positions and what you want to do in your role as the secretary or what others are able to do because of their different skill sets or maybe their availability. Whatever works for your chapter is how you need to proceed with the different responsibilities. Just let's go over what needs to be on your radar so that nothing's falling through the cracks. The chapter secretary will work very closely with the chapter president to make sure you're appropriately welcoming your new members and making them feel like they're part of the team. You also might either be the secretary treasurer or you might have some responsibilities that overlap with the treasurer. That's how important the secretary is to this organization. Now, like I said, you're the record keeper. You are the administrative officer and of the chapter, and you're responsible for keeping everybody organized and up to date. The secretary needs to keep up with chapter bylaws, keep up with policies, procedures, and it might even fall on you if it's not falling on the treasurer to make sure that your corporate nonprofit status is staying up to date within your state. You may be required to do an annual filing with the state, and that might be on your plate or it might be on the treasurer, but it needs to be on somebody's radar. Now, I mentioned bylaws. Let's talk bylaws. Very rarely would you like to see them change. There can be some hurdles that you have to jump through in order to make those legally binding documents different. Policy documents, that might be a little bit easier to change. They're a little more flexible. So maybe your chapter should invest in having some policy documents that help run your governance or tell you how you should operate your chapter, that tells you decisions that you should be making. Regardless of where you put it, where you change it, you as the secretary needs to be responsible for making those changes when they're made and then housing that information in a chapter archive. Another important part that you want to be sure to archive for your chapter are your minutes. Now, this slide is going to list the different things that should appear in minutes. If you're just not familiar with this process, ask your past chapter secretaries if they've got templates that you can follow. Google has some pretty good templates. And then, of course, us at the AMBUCS Resource Center, we are interested in offering you the assistance that you need. If you want to reach out to us about how to write minutes, we're more than happy to do that with you. Most important thing on this slide is to be sure to store your chapter minutes. Does not seem significant, but they very well can be. You might have a bank or a grantor reach out to you wanting to see copies of your minutes. Or you as a chapter might forget what decisions you made and when you made them. Guess where it's going to be? In your chapter minutes. So it's very, very important that these documents be archived accordingly. As I mentioned, your chapter records, your bylaws, policy documents, EIN letters, board meetings, committee reports, all of those permanent archive documents need to be just that, permanently archived. There's some other records that you might want to keep that really kind of paints a picture of your chapter history, your newsletters, your calendars, your planning calendars, committee rosters. The history of your chapter is steeped within these documents. It might also help future leadership to be able to reference those documents later. Membership records. This is so important. And you're really doing us a wonderful service when you make sure your chapter officers and your membership records, your membership roster are as up to date as possible in the membership hub. Speaking of the hub, We want you to exercise your committee administrator abilities that you're given just as being a secretary of your chapter. You can make other administrators to help you report activities, to make corrections to your chapter data. But you, as the secretary, need to be one of the important key players in that process. There is so much information that you know as the secretary that needs to end up getting reflected into the hub. Now, do you want to report your chapter activities on a weekly basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis, yearly basis? Yeah, I don't know if I would say do it on a yearly basis because that would be very tough to keep up with all of that information. But whatever works for you is how you should report your activities. But please, please, please report them. Brag about your chapter. You guys are doing some wonderful things in your community, and you've got some bragging rights. It helps us at the national office because we can then turn around to the IRS and report on what our subsidiaries are doing in their communities so that we can keep our group exemption. It helps us write grants. It helps us brag about you when you're reporting what you're doing in your community. We are really able to utilize that information and put it to work. But most importantly, it's important for your chapter for you to report activities. It is creating history for your chapter, things that people, leaders, members of the future can go see that you've done. One thing that we do want to put out there is quarterly reporting is especially important when it comes to the quarterly billing. So we are going to give you some deadlines for that. We want you to make those roster changes at least 10 days following the month after a quarter so that we can then go and do our chapter billing and we know that it's going to be on correct roster information. So get those new members into us, delete the ones who aren't belonging to your chapter anymore. You want to do any sort of business after the first quarter, which is going to end in August. Second quarter is going to run you from September to November. Third ends in February, and then the fourth quarter, rounding out the AMBUCS year, is going to run from March to May. And as I've said, chapter activity reporting, please get into the hub if you haven't already done so. It's hub.ambucs.org. How do you report activities? Well, first you need to go to your chapter page. So under your picture, or where a picture would be, you'll see your chapter name. If you'll click there, that's your chapter's website. And you can click on activity in the header. Each activity category has a little plus symbol in the upper right corner, and that is where you will add an activity. Now, that activity will show immediately. There will be reports that you can pull immediately. As of right now, the scoring is going to reflect differently 24 hours later. It's going to hit at midnight, and those scores are going to change. Of the future, it will be an immediate score change, but currently to date, there requires a little bit of a lull period for the scores to reflect appropriately. In order to add new members, you need to understand our membership types at the Resource Center. New members, someone who has never been involved with AMBUCS on a membership level. So a brand new person who has not had a membership is considered a new member. Reinstated members, those are people who left and came back. You can get Big Hat credit. You can get credit towards membership drives for reinstated members, but you cannot for those transfer members. These are people who started at one chapter. Maybe they moved across the country. They went to a completely different chapter. They're considered a transfer. We don't charge a reinstatement fee for them as long as it's happened within 60 days. And like I mentioned, you can't get Big Hat or membership drive credit for them, but we are more than happy to waive that reinstatement fee for you. Dual members, you can belong to more than one AMBUCS chapter, so you're able to recruit someone who already exists within another group. Now, dual members don't count towards Big Hat credit or membership drive credit, but they can be added to your roster and be used as someone to assist in your chapter growth. Speaking of growth, Big Hat Club. So once a member has sponsored 3 or more members in a 12-month period, they're eligible to join the Big Hat Club. We consider it a pretty prestigious honor because that's not a simple task, but it's a lot of fun too, this club within a club. All Big Hat members have the ability to receive a complimentary Western style hat, and we ship that direct from the AMBUCS Resource Center. And once received, they're able to display their recruitment pins on it. Now, we do ask Big Hat Club members pay $10 in annual dues. And what that does is it helps cover some of that overhead cost for our Big Hat Club. As a chapter secretary, you can help your members keep up with their sponsorships and getting to that third that they need within a 12-month period. And then at that point, once they've reached the third, you can help them fill out a Big Hat form collecting their hat size information and where the hat needs to ship and help get that into the AMBUCS Resource Center so that we can get you guys the hat. Now, quite often we get asked, where should we ship to? It's up to you. So sometimes you want it to go direct to your member. Often we see it go to the chapter president or the chapter Big Hat president because you want to be able to present that to your new Big Hatter in a formal setting to give them a pat on the back and tell them job well done. Friends members, I often get asked, are we still doing Friends memberships? We are. They're pretty powerful. So friends can be family members, they can be business acquaintances, they can be donors or community members, people that you want to stay connected to the AMBUCS mission because Friends members get an AMBUCS magazine every quarter. Now, a friend can choose to pay their $25 annual dues themselves, or sometimes the chapters can make that choice to sponsor it for them, to gift them that membership. And it works quite often with donor relationships, key donors that they want to continue to see that AMBUCS visibility. They want to keep that touch point with a particular donor. Our chapters will make them friends so that they can just kind of keep that connection and that strong relationship in their community. As the chapter secretary, please take an active role in welcoming the new members. Your chapter president has the responsibility to induct these new members, but we want you to help make that process a little more smooth, to have a special touch. So you could invest in just like some sticker name tags so that everyone knows the name of your new member. And then you could make your new members an information packet. Give them a chapter officer directory, their committee chairs, how to get in touch with them, chapter literature, policy documents, and most importantly, give them their membership pin. So we will send you pins on a quarterly basis from the Resource Center to recognize your new members, but some of our chapters like to invest in those pins in advance so that they always have one on hand. So if you want to pay $4 and get a new member pin in advance and just kind of keep them at in your chapter arsenal, you could do that, and then just know we're going to replenish those for you at the end of each quarter for each new member. Make sure your new members receive some type of orientation. AMBUCS can be beautifully unique, which makes us a little confusing sometimes. So let's not overwhelm them with information, but let's help our new members feel more welcome, feel more involved because they've been more educated about AMBUCS and about your chapter. Here's some helpful resources that you can find in the membership hub to help you as a chapter secretary be more successful. I strongly encourage you to download, possibly even print, the National Leadership Planning Calendar. It's going to spell out some of those important dates and deadlines for you. It will help you get organized in your AMBUCS year that you serve. Of course, if you have any questions of us, the AMBUCS Resource Center, feel free to reach out to us at membership@ambucs.org. Membership@ambucs.org. We'd love to assist you further. We want to see you successful because your success means chapter success, that you're such an important part of your chapter's leadership. Thank you so much for joining us today and learning more about how to become a chapter secretary.